Hello Eagles Nation, Vincent Focht here, and welcome to a Week 8 Eagles Chat. We're here at Eagles Chat, we get down right to the news you want to hear on your birds. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe to the Eagles Chat YouTube channel, as well as following us on Instagram at Chat Eagles, where you can find daily updates on your birds, and you can also find our Instagram in the description of this Eagles Chat video. But now let's get right into it. And as we all know, the Eagles went up against the Cincinnati Bengals and won big time. Final score 37-17 birds. So who day? Well, I don't know who day is, but I know who the Eagles are, and they were definitely the team that showed up in today's game. Now, looking back at both of these teams' past two games, they both went up against the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants, and they were both coming into this game with a two-game winning streak. But believe it or not, the Cincinnati Bengals were favored. Now, probably were favored because they were going into this game playing in their home field in Cincinnati. But I tell you what, that was not the case at all. The Eagles dominated on both sides of the ball, picking up their first win ever in Cincinnati. Take that in for a second. Let that sink in. That's some statement now, isn't it? But let's not just talk and talk. Let's get into this Eagles Chat even more. And we're first going to start off with the injury update. Now, the news with the injury update is we have one big-time player on it, and that is Darius Slay, a.k.a. Big Play Slay. Now, the news with him is he is said to have a groin injury. Now, we'll continue to monitor this injury very, very closely as the rest of this week continues, as well as monitoring guys like Lane Johnson and Jack Stoll. Now, yes, Lane Johnson came out of the game for a little bit. He was checked, but then returned in the game. So there is that. Again, nothing serious as well with Jack Stoll. Nothing too serious. We just want to monitor it to make sure nothing else transpires out of it. As I said this many, many times in previous Eagles chats, and I probably sound like a broken record, when players go to bed, they may not feel something, but when they wake up the next morning, there's probably something there that they didn't feel when they went to bed. So we'll continue to monitor everything very, very closely to make sure no other injuries transpire going down the line as the rest of this week continues. Again, make sure to follow us on our Instagram page. Again, you can find that in the description of this video to make sure you stay on top of everything that is happening with your bird. So make sure to give us a follow on Instagram. But now, moving on to Jalen Hurts' play. Now, I tell you what, the big topic of today's game was definitely consistency. That was the theme of today's game for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. And I tell you what, if this isn't consistency, I don't know what is. Jalen Hurts had a passer rating in today's game of 132.5. So again, like I said, if that's not consistency, I really don't know what is, as Jalen Hurts had an absolutely incredible game. Now, I said this in past Eagles chats. You need something that can get this offense and get Jalen Hurts in a rhythm, which is another thing. Let Kellen Moore be Kellen Moore. Let him call his offense the way Kellen Moore calls his offense. And that is something where obviously, like I've said before, and I've even said it in our off-season Eagles chat, Kellen Moore is known for slant plays and motion type plays, which can really help get your QB and your offense in a rhythm if they're really struggling to find themselves. And that's the exact definition of what's been happening with the Eagles. Recently, this whole season, the Eagles have really been struggling to find themselves and really have been struggling to find their rhythm, which was not the case at all these past 2 weeks with going up against the Giants and the Bengals, where the Eagles had their rhythm. Yes, it was a little rough at the start, but again, they found the rhythm, in my opinion, a lot quicker than in past games. Again, even though they did not score, they still have not scored a single point in the first quarter all year. Yes, I understand that. But the rhythm came a lot faster, and by the time the second quarter came, now remember, the Bengals had a very, very long drive in the first quarter, pretty much took up a little more than half of the first quarter. So yes, it's going to be a little hard to respond in a scenario like that when your opposing team takes up the majority of the time in one quarter just on one drive. But the Eagles, when they got their rhythm, they held their rhythm. And there were a time where they had 3 touchdowns on back-to-back-to-back drives, which is something that we as Eagles fans cannot say we saw in a long time, something that we haven't seen in probably a little more than a year of the Eagles offense just constantly pounding the opposing team. But that's exactly what we saw. And we also saw a Jalen Hurts that was just a lot more on point. When Kellen Moore would call these plays, I don't know how many slant plays I saw with quick passes over the middle. I don't know how many times I saw Devontae Smith getting slant passes. They were short passes where the Eagles were able to walk practically right down the field to really get Hurts in a rhythm. And occasionally, like I said, once they get him in a rhythm, occasionally you would see a long ball pass. And I tell you what, we saw a real big-time long ball pass today with that 45-yard passing touchdown to Devontae Smith, where Hurts had incredible blocking in the pocket, stepped up in the pocket, which is something that I've been wanting to see from him for a long time. He stepped up in the pocket and delivered an absolute bomb to Devontae Smith. That was absolutely incredible. I knew that was a big punch in the gut for the Bengals right there when that happened. I mean, that was a big-time play and a play that I really been we saw a big one from Hurts last week with that big play, that big touchdown with Brown last week, and we saw another big play from Hurts. We are starting to see more big plays week after week. The consistency is something that is coming back, which is, again, something that we didn't see all of last year and the beginning of this year. It was a little rough, but I tell you what, Kellen Moore has gotten this offense into a rhythm. Hurts' running as well has improved. The QB design run plays were on point as well. Now, there were some plays where Hurts didn't see anything and didn't hesitate. When he saw that the pocket was slowly starting to collapse, he took off immediately. There was no hesitation, which is something that I love to see from him. And he used his legs quite a bit. 10 carries for 37 yards and had 3 rushing touchdowns. So that is something really incredible. But as well, looking at his passing stats, 16 out of 20, 236 yards, obviously the one passing touchdown that we just talked about for Devontae Smith. So this was definitely a game of consistency. The theme was consistency, and Kellen Moore was calling plays to help get him in a rhythm, and then that way, when it was time for the big play, Hurts was accurate on that big play. Well, notice at the beginning of the year, a lot of his long balls were all over the place. They were either underthrown, overthrown, or just if they were on the sideline, Hurts would overthrow them so bad where it was out of bounds. That is something we didn't see this game. We saw quick passes that were on point. None of these passes, sometimes even on slants, you would see him pass just behind the wide receiver. I don't know how many times Smith actually had to reach behind him in past games to catch the ball. We didn't see that much at all today. This was a game, a big-time improvement game for Jalen Hurts. Man, was he due for it, and he performed at a high level. Again, 132.5 passer rating. If that's not consistency, I don't know what is. I would need an expert to tell me what consistency is if that is not a good definition of it. They came to play. They dominated on offense. But let's talk about some of the other offensive contributors besides Jalen Hurts. Some guys that helped him in this victory. Obviously, one being Saquon Barkley. Hurts didn't do all the running. Of course, Barkley was in there as well. Barkley had 22 carries for 108 yards. A.J. Brown was a big contributor. 5 receptions for 84 yards. And, of course, Devontae Smith. Can't forget him, the best wide receiver duo in the league, one of the best in the league. Had 6 receptions, 85 yards, 1 touchdown. Of course, that 45 passing yard touchdown from Hurts to Smith, which was an absolute bomb. If you want to see that play again, check out our Instagram. We have that play up there. It is something absolutely incredible and a play that I haven't seen in a long time. It got the Philly faithful there that were in attendance in Cincinnati real riled up. And, hey, we heard a lot of Eagles chants there. There was a lot of green in that crowd in Cincinnati. So, hey, he gave the Philly fans something to cheer about, and I know everyone was going crazy at home. I know you guys loved it, and I loved it too. The Birds, the green and black, are back. That is 100% for sure. But now, let's go into the defense. So like I said, they were good on both sides of the football. Offense did well and the defense did well. But here are our 2 Eagles Chat defensive players of the game. One is Nakobe Dean and the other one is Zach Bond. These guys are all over the place. Nakobe Dean has been a big time, a huge improvement as he started off the season a little shaky with some of his tackles, but man, has he improved. Both of these guys combined today had 15 tackles. They were all over the place. They even combined on a big play as the Bengals had 2 big-time turnovers that the defense caused. One was that fumble recovery, which both Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond were part of, and the other turnover was the C.J. Gardner-Johnson interception, which C.J. Gardner wouldn't have had that interception if it wasn't for Isaiah Rodgers. Isaiah Rodgers tipped it, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson was on the other end of that tip. It tipped right into his breadbasket. He caught it, and that interception right there pretty much was a big-time gut punch. It took all the air out of them, and they had nothing else to reply with. This was an absolute dominated win on both sides of the ball. The offense would do their part. The defense would come on and do their part. Now, I understand there were some shaky times where the secondary was a little shaky. That was 100% a fact, where the secondary, in certain times, were definitely a little shaky. There was some blown coverage now and then, and the consistency of that was definitely a little concerning. But I tell you what, in the fourth quarter, they shaped that up real quick. and that was definitely something that improved big time. Vic Fangio adjusted, which is something that we didn't see a lot last year either. The ability to adjust. This coaching staff has done a great job these past 2 games of adjusting when appropriate, and I tell you what, this is something to be extremely happy about. If I'm an Eagles fan, which I am, I'm extremely happy about it. I know you're extremely happy about it. And just this whole Delaware Valley, people are going crazy. I came out of my house today, and there were people just absolutely with joy going down the street and everything, being able to see that their birds are back in action, and we are back to being feared in the NFL again, saying that, hey, we're not just looking good on paper. We are the real deal. We're not going to roll over and play dead. We are, I mean, when you play the Eagles, you know you're going to be going through a lot of, let's just say a lot of suffering if you're the opposing team, because the Eagles are not just going to go down with the ship. They are a team that's going to fight. And as we saw today, they're, let's just say, hopefully the games of barely winning and the games of 55 heart attacks, hopefully they are behind us. I understand it's just 2 games, but hopefully the Eagles can stay consistent. And if they stay consistent, let's just say hopefully the Eagles will be playing in February. I'll just say that. That's all I'll say. But that's all for me in this Eagles chat. Next game, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Week 9, Sunday, November 3rd. Can't believe it. November's right around the corner as well, with Halloween on Thursday. So happy Halloween to all of you out there. If you're going out trick-or-treating, have a nice, safe Halloween. Be careful out there. And if you're just handing out candy, hey, make a kid's day. Have fun. I know some people, some of my friends are going to be sitting out on their porch scaring the kids as they come up. So, hey, it's going to be a great time to dress up and do some pranks on your friends. I know I have a couple in store for some of mine. So if some of my friends are watching this, just watch out. You may have some Halloween pranks coming around the corner. But that's all for me in this Eagles chat. Eagles, like I said, going up against Jacksonville Jaguars. So will the Eagles see Doug Peterson next week? Well, we don't know. The Jacksonville Jaguars lost again. They're not doing well at all this season. So Peterson may not even make it to next week. There's a possibility he could be fired tomorrow with the way things are going. So there's a possibility we may see Doug Peterson back at the Link, but there's also a strong possibility that he'll be fired by the time next week's game comes. So we'll just have to see. But hopefully the Eagles can improve their record again next week. Stay on the winning ways as they have a 3-game winning streak to improve their record to 5-2. The green and black are back better than ever. And hopefully, like I said, they can continue this winning streak into next week's game at the Link in front of the Philly faithful in South Philadelphia. That's all for me. And as always, go Birds! Have a good week, everybody. Happy Halloween. And I'll see you back here next week to cover the Jacksonville Jaguars Philadelphia Eagles game. See you next week.